Rhythm games are one of my favourite subgenres in the video game space, and as such, Soundfall is a game that has been on my radar ever since its initial reveal at Gamescom in 2021. It looked to combine smooth responsive combat, perfectly timed to the beat of various musical tracks, and now that it's finally with us, and I have had the pleasure of experiencing it for myself, I can safely say that it has left an echoing impression on me, and as such, it's deserving of a full review. My review on Soundfall is based on the Steam PC version of the game, and while I'm sure the game will function mostly the same on other platforms, it's worth mentioning that the performance may differ on other systems, and features like the music importer is a PC-only feature. There will be some minor spoilers ahead pertaining to the different worlds, characters and plot for the game for those who may want to go into the game with a fresh perspective. I would suggest you go pick up the game right now and lose yourself in the music. So without further ado, it's time to dive into the world of Soundfall and see if it has the musical prowess to hit all the right notes. Soundfall is a game brought to us by developer Drastic Games, an indie company who already have a few titles under its belt that have admittedly been overlooked by myself and many others, it appears, based on the amount of reviews their other titles seem to have at least. However, this game looks to be their big breakout hit, and I truly hope that Soundfall manages to sell well because it simply deserves to be enjoyed by as many people as possible, and with it being featured in Nintendo's Indie World Showcase, I'm confident that people will be excited to pick this game up after seeing what it has to offer. The campaign begins with protagonist Melody, a musical genius transported to the world of Symphonia by the composers to battle the forces of Discord. Together with up to 4 other players, you will fight your way through the corrupted timberlands of Symphonia, eradicating the Discordians and restoring harmony to the environment. To complement the storytelling, the game features beautifully animated cutscenes throughout to highlight important moments, which are a visual treat. While it's nice to have a story to tie things together and motivate the player throughout the campaign, I think the real draw for many will be how tight the gameplay is, and I'm happy to report that it is indeed tight and very responsive, one of the most important aspects of any game that focuses on rhythm for its gameplay. Soundfall incorporates both local and online co-op play in addition to its single player, which is much appreciated for a game of this nature, and although I can't comment on how well local play works, as I had no one to experience it with in close quarters, but if it's anything like the online experience has been, then it's bound to be just as enjoyable. The enemy Discordian quantity and health totals are scaled with how many players there are, keeping the difficulty in check. Soundfall plays much like a twin-stick shooter, with all the action being viewed from a top-down perspective, with the option to manually control the direction of your shots, as well as its own auto-targeting system. During the later levels where hazards are introduced, I much prefer having control of where I'm aiming, as to avoid hitting explosive items on the field. You begin the game with Melody unlocked from the get-go, with a few more characters unlocking across the course of the campaign, each with their own unique gear and style of play. Further difficulty levels are introduced as you level up your character and gear, providing more of a challenge and introducing new enemy types that require different methods of slaying, such as shielded enemies, and tankier alternative colour variants of common enemies. The standard blaster is the first weapon you learn to utilise, with on-beat shots dealing far greater damage than off-beat shots. Before long, you will unlock a melee weapon, as well as an ultimate skill. As you continue to play through the game, you will quickly grow accustomed to timing your shots, dashes, sword slashes, and ultimates to match the beat, as you enter a euphoric state and become one with the music. As you improve with each playthrough, you really begin to feel a highly satisfying and rewarding sense of flow. To help incentivize repeat playthroughs of a level, you are awarded medals for completing it with specific criteria, with separate ones for each difficulty level, from finishing the mission without a song looping to finishing the mission without going off beat. There's plenty of content to keep completionists engaged. Each level has its own set map design and enemy placements, which may feel repetitive for some players. However, I would argue that, as is typical for a rhythm game, you're attempting to master the levels as you continue to replay them, so having fixed parameters is actually beneficial for learning the ins and outs of each song. Soundfall harbours an equally rewarding loot progression system. As you progress through your musical journey, you will gain gold, XP, and a plethora of loot, which are loaded with extra benefits to enhance your playstyle, with some armor pieces granting extra dashes and blasters having bonus elemental effects, just to name a few, which keeps things interesting throughout the game. Throughout the campaign, Melody and company travel across 10 uniquely themed biomes, and each biome that you visit will contain a selection of songs that loosely adhere to a particular musical genre, which really helps each of the worlds stand out from each other, from the tropical and salsa vibes of the beach biome to the metal-inspired volcano biome, each world sets itself apart from one another. The world map even features one of my favourite aspects of sound design in the form of dynamic music, which I absolutely will be going into more detail on in a future video, so stay tuned for that. In addition to the unique styles of music, each biome also introduces its own level gimmicks and hazards, keeping you on your toes as the difficulty increases with each added hazard. During my own playtime of Soundfall, I have been thoroughly enjoying playing on my own and with friends, and while there are some songs that I don't enjoy as much as others, the game will no doubt have something for everyone to enjoy.
It is a little something for everyone,
as Soundfall contains well over 100 songs, as well as the ability to import your own songs if you own the PC version, which is a great feature, even if it doesn't always work perfectly by default. As soon as I jump into a level and adjust myself to the tempo of the song, I find myself bopping my head and bouncing my leg to the music as I'm playing, keeping myself focused as I switch between shooting, slashing and dashing, while aiming for the best medal score. It's a great time, and it does a brilliant job of keeping me engaged, and I would highly recommend it to those who enjoy rhythm games, as well as those who enjoy looter shooters and top-down shooters. Now on to some of the issues that plague the game. Getting into the flow state that I mentioned earlier doesn't always come easily. Some songs feel like they just weren't intended for a rhythm game like this. Many songs come with periods of downtime and BPM changes that just aren't indicated to the player, and as a result will leave you off beat, even though you've been following along just fine until that point. Which wouldn't be much of a problem if weapons wouldn't overheat on these occasions, causing potential death during higher difficulty playthroughs, which has happened to me a few times as it puts you completely out of sync and renders you helpless until you find a way to readjust. There are some weapons that have increased durability against overheating, however that doesn't counteract the problem at hand. On top of this, I often found that the beginning of some songs feels like it takes a few seconds for the metronome to sync itself with the beat as it builds up to its main pace, which if you start performing shots or dashes too soon, will ruin your on-beat run before it's even begun. Song looping towards the end of a track also suffers from this problem as it isn't looped in a way that keeps with the pace, instead opting for a traditional song looping process which lets the song end in its entirety and then begin anew, which doesn't work well for a game of this nature. Granted, once you become better at the game and a higher level, this will become less of an issue. However, BPM changes will screw you over at one point or another. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, a game of this style demands replayability, and you can adapt yourself around these issues, but in all honesty, I think a bit more song curation and a slightly different approach to the song looping, and even some kind of warning about BPM changes would have gone a long way in helping iron out some of these issues. One of the main issues I personally had with Soundfall as of the time of writing this video, especially when going for the perfect medals, was the lack of a quick restart option. So as it turns out, this next thing I was about to complain about has actually been fixed in a patch, so let's rephrase it. At launch, the game failed to even have a quick restart option, which made it a chore to go for platinum medals, as restarting required you to return to the menu every single time you made a mistake. Thankfully, this has been patched in at the time of this video's release. I still think we need to have the option to mark songs as favourites due to how many there are in this game. It's hard to keep track of your favourites, and trying to search through the list becomes cumbersome. Fingers crossed these features can be addressed in future updates. That's all I have to say for Soundfall for now. Hopefully I've inspired you to give it a try, and if you've sunk some time into it already, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed my take on the game. Please subscribe to the channel for more reviews and gaming content in the future, and if you've enjoyed this video, a like will go a long way. Thank you so much for making it to the end. I will see you in the next one. Take care.